Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Chat. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen. This week we're talking about Slammiversary from 2022 for Impact Wrestling, celebrating 20 years of Impact Wrestling and TNA Impact Wrestling. So last video you saw, I did my predictions and kind of hopes and thoughts for the pay-per-view, and now doing the review and results video after watching the show last night. So we started off with the pre-show. You had Rich Swann taking on Brian Myers, and this is one of the few predictions that I actually got right. I didn't get too much right, but at least I got that one right. Rich Swann did retain, and now he actually gets to wear the Digital Media Championship, where Matt Cardona stole it after he lost, and he gave it over to Brian Myers. So it's great that Rich Swann got his retribution. Now he gets to wear the title into the future, and let's see what happens with it. Then you had the Reverse Battle Royale match, which was kind of a tribute to the old school, gimmick style matches of the early days of TNA. Pretty sure Vince Russo probably came up with that idea. It's not one of his better ones. Notice there was no tribute to Vince Russo on the show. They probably want to forget his time there, even though he was there for years. But he came up with a lot of gimmick-style matches, just like he did in the WCW days. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. You got Johnny Swinger and Zicky Dice coming in, doing their thing. You had kind of the ham and eggers of the early days of TNA, as Johnny Swinger says. Like Shark Boy, who actually won the match. Shark Boy won. Shell yeah! You also had Steve Macklin and Chris Bay in there, and that was probably the only believable part of the show when they were going at it, so I'm sure we're going to see that match going forward. So then we get to the main show, and we kicked it off with a nice video package of Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Jarrett and Bob Reiner. Nice kind of tribute to them, and what they came up with TNA and Total Non-Stop Action Wrestling. I never liked that name, by the way. I was glad when they changed it to Impact Wrestling. That made more sense to me. But anyway, we're celebrating 20 years of Impact Wrestling. I thought that was a really cool way to do it. So many great memories, and that was a nice tip of the hat to Jeff Jarrett, and what he came up with. And then we had the Ultimate X match, which had all the makings of a classic. You had Trey Miguel in there. You had Speedball Mike Bailey. You had Ace Austin, who was the reigning X Division champion, and he just came from a run with Japan where he joined the Bullet Club. Which was really cool. So he had a lot of momentum going into this match. He was the X Division champ, now he's a member of the Bullet Club, which is the problem I have with this match. I thought it was a kind of a strange choice to have him drop the title in this match, and it ended up being Speedball Mike Bailey winning the X Division championship. And it was a solid match. Some great spots in there, some great high-flying moves, and we saw a sick Canadian destroyer from the top rope from Trey Miguel. That was awesome. And you had some great wrestling, did a lot of cool high-flying stuff, going on top of the cables, trying to grab the belt and all that. But I didn't think it quite lived up to the hype. I thought it could have been better, It seemed like they played it safe a little bit, and it's kind of baffling to me, the choice of having Ace Austin drop the belt. Why is it that Ace Austin can't hold the belt for more than 5 minutes, Here's a guy they call the future of TNA so many times, and they never let him have any kind of momentum. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Mike Bailey is definitely a great wrestler, great competitor. So it's gonna be a cool run, I think, I thought it was a little bit too soon to give him the belt, but we'll see what happens. Let's see if he runs with it and has a big run. Then you had the Knockouts Tag Team Championship with Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie taking on the influence. So I just love Madison Rayne to Neil Dashwood. They have such great chemistry, and you know, they had a great run, you know. So they had a good long run, so I guess it was time for them to drop the belts, and they did. So Rosemary and Taya Valkyrie are now the Impact Knockouts Tag Team Championship, which is going to be strange going forward because Rosemary is supposed to be with Decay, and then she was supposed to be looking for Havoc and all that, you know. And Taya Valkyrie is not a member of Decay, so what are they going to do with that, you know? Are they going to be like besties again, like they were for the Wrestle House, and then you had the Who Shot Johnny Bravo thing, and then you had the... they did make a run for the Tag Team Champions when they first brought back the Knockouts Tag Team Champion. They had a big tournament, and Rosemary and Taya teamed up for that. So let's see what happens. Should be interesting. And then you had the big 10-man tag team elimination match. Well, that was a lot of fun. You had Honor No More, which is probably my favorite faction in Impact Wrestling right now, led by Eddie Edwards. You got Mike Bennett, you got Maria in there. Maria did come back for this one, so that was great. She hadn't been around for a few weeks. And then you had the Impact Originals. You had the Motor City Machine Guns, Chris Sabin and Alex Shelley. You had Nick Aldis, who used to be Magnus back in the day. You had Frankie Kazarian. And he was there with his wife, Tracy Brooks, who we saw in the crowd there. And she actually got involved in the match. That was cool. And you also had Christy Hemme announcing the match, being the ring announcer. That was cool. She looks fantastic. You know, she still looks beautiful. I wish I'd see more of her, you know. She was great. And then you had Dixie Carter coming out, former president, CEO of TNA and Impact Wrestling back in the day. And you gotta give her credit, you know, she did save TNA when it was dying, you know. When Jeff Jarrett was heading it, you know, they were in financial crisis until Dixie Carter came in. And she came from money, you know. So they were able to keep it afloat. Regardless of what you think of what she did with the company and how she ran the company, you know, you gotta give her that at least. So it was nice that they gave her a little moment there, and she got to introduce the mystery opponent for the Impact Originals, and it was Davey Richards, which was pretty interesting, you know, I didn't expect that. And that brings kind of a story for the match, you know, you got Davey Richards and Eddie Edwards, both from the Wolves, you know, former tag team champions, and at one point they did break up and have a big feud, and now... So that was cool, and that made for an interesting match, and it was a great match. I thought this was much better than the Ultimate X match. It was way more spots and high flying and just chaos, you know. It was exciting, you know. It was really good, really fun. And Honor No More, unfortunately, did take the loss, so it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. Can they recover from that loss, you know? Or is Eddie Edwards just going to be pissed and just leave him and go off on his own? Eventually, I do want to see Eddie Edwards have that big match with Josh Alexander, maybe for Bound for Glory. You need to have Eddie be the big heel of the company, going at it with the big baby face of the company, you know. So then you had the Tag Team Championship match with the Good Brothers versus the Briscoes, you know. Now, I like the Briscoes. They're a lot of fun. They're rough around the edges. They're just kind of crazy and zany, you know. But they're intense, you know. And the Good Brothers, you know, I haven't been all that impressed with their run since they came back a couple of years ago, you know. They seem to kind of been going through the motions. It's almost like they're just taking Impact Wrestling as a paycheck gig, you know. You saw Carl Anderson had a knock on TNA when he was over in Japan. He was like, oh, I only show up when there's thousands of people in the crowd, not when there's 300, 400 people. I'm like, wow. And here they go, giving them the tag team championship again for the third time. Something that nobody wants. Nobody wants to see the Good Brothers be tag team championships. Why do they do that? I don't know. I guess they just want to keep them happy so they'll stay with Impact, because they are a draw, let's face it, from their time in WWE and Japan, you know. They're big stars, there's no question about it. So that's all I can think. That's the only reason I can think why would they kill the momentum of the Briscoes, you know. They just became tag team champions, you know, and they had a nice run going and they just kind of derailed it, you know. Oh well, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Maybe the Briscoes will get it back, or maybe they'll be done with the company. I don't know. But then you had the Monsters Ball match with Moose and Sami Callihan, and I didn't really have too much hope on this one. I thought it would just be a typical, you know, hardcore style match, but it definitely exceeded my expectations. It was a really awesome match. I had a great time with it. I mean, it was brutal, man. They were going at it. Man. And they had great chemistry in the ring. They told a great story, you know. I like how they kind of locked them in a dark room for like 48 hours or whatever it was before the match. That was fun. But yeah, I love when they brought out the tacks and Sami Callihan gave Moose the pile driver. His head kind of went into the thumbtacks. He had thumbtacks coming out of his head, you know, all over his back. You know, he had no shirt on. And then he went through the barbed wire door, you know. Yeah, it was pretty awesome, you know. Just say Sami Callihan got bloody in the face, you know. He was a crimson mess. But yeah, it was a blast. It was one of the best Monsters Ball matches, and that was a nice kind of tribute to Abyss back in the day with the Monsters Ball matches, you know. Wish we saw Abyss on the show, you know. But we did get some really cool video packages from Sting, you know, sending a message, and Kurt Angle sending a message, and one that really shocked me was AJ Styles sending a message, you know, current huge star in WWE, giving a shout out to Impact Wrestling. That was really cool that WWE let him do that, and he even said that, you know, thank you to WWE for letting me do this, you know. Seeing some nice words about Impact Wrestling and his time there, you know, and the great matches he had with Kurt Angle and Sting and Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe and all that. So that was cool. That was great. Loved it. Awesome stuff, you know. And this show was just a great celebration. And I forgot to mention that we also saw James Storm and Chris Harris, America's Most Wanted from back in the day. That was cool too. They showed up and had a beer toast with the Good Brothers and the Briscoes, which is a little weird because they're supposed to be fighting the Briscoes. They kind of put their troubles aside to have a beer together with America's Most Wanted. That was kind of weird, but anyway, it was great to see them together. It was great to see James Storm back, you know. I don't know if they'll do anything in the future. We'll see, but it was great to have him back. You know, I love James Storm, the cowboy James Storm. But there was so many fun moments. I just think this was an awesome pay-per-view, and of course we got to talk about the main event, Josh Alexander versus Eric Young. Oh, and before that, I want to talk about the Queen of the Mountain match. I almost forgot that. That was an awesome match. You know, that's one that lived up to the hype and far exceeded it, man. These girls worked their ass off in that match. You had so many great spots. You know, you had Tasha Steelz, who was the Knockouts champion. You had Deonna Purrazzo, Chelsea Green, Tasha Steelz, Mickie James was a special guest enforcer. That was a lot of fun. Doing her thing, you know, looking great, you know. And Jordynne Grace and Mia Yim, who was just coming in from WWE. So I was kind of shocked they didn't have her win, you know. Being that You know, it seems like anytime someone comes from WWE, they just kind of give them everything, you know. Let's give her the title right away, you know. So I'm glad they didn't do that. But I was very shocked that Jordynne Grace won. Wow. I was not expecting that at all because, you know, they haven't really been building her up too much. She's been doing solid work week in, weekend out. So maybe they're just kind of giving her due, you know, because she has been busting her ass and working really hard for the company. She's gotten in incredible shape, and she's always been a great presence on the social media, on Twitter and everything. So, yeah, props to Jordynne Grace. She's awesome, and she absolutely deserves it. And you had some awesome spots in the match, like when Deonna Purrazzo and Chelsea Green fell off the ladder onto the outside, through the tables. I was like, damn. And he had a great spot with Maya Yim when she ran up the ladder across the ropes and did a flip outside to the ring, you know. That was really cool. You had Mickie James doing a thing, you know, sending people to the penalty box and, you know, keeping law and order in the ring. Throwing out Savannah Evans, you know. Tasha Steele's always getting saved by Savannah Evans all the time, so they threw her out of there. But Mickie James did a little abuse of power there. Chelsea Green looked like she was about to win, go up the ladder, put the belt up on the hook, and win the Knockouts Championship, but she just knocked her off the ladder. So yeah, they were reigniting that feud, you know. That was a lot of fun. I was like, damn, Mickie, you abuse of power there. Breaking the rules. That was a lot of fun. But yeah, the Queen of the Mountain match, the first ever Queen of the Mountain match, you know. I knew that Tasha Steelz was not going to win. I don't think anybody thought that she would come out of that match on top. Because she's kind of had a lackluster run as Knockouts champion, you know. It was not a memorable run, so it was time to end and see what someone else can do, you know. And you know, I'm glad they picked Jordynne Grace because I think she's going to really run with it. I think she's going to do a great job. She's going to put asses in the seats and make the Knockouts Championship mean something again, you know. Because I didn't think Tasha Steelz did a very good job, you know. And I like Tasha Steelz. She's really talented, but I don't know what it was. I don't know if she just didn't connect with the audience or what. I think Savannah Evans being there maybe takes away from it a lot. Her always being involved in the matches and helping her win. It kind of gets old after a while, so I think that was a big problem. But anyway, let's talk about the World Championship. Absolute classic 5-star match, and as I knew they would deliver, you know. People were skeptical, you know, why is Eric Young, who's like old and, you know, going at it with Josh Alexander, who's the future of Impact Wrestling. They're like, what are you talking about, you know? Eric Young is the perfect guy to represent the history of TNA. He has such a long history with TNA wrestling from back in the Don't Fire Eric days and the Showtime Eric Young days. And the run he had with ODB when they were Knockouts Tag Team Champions. That was fun. To the much more serious, intense Eric Young nowadays, you know. Say what you will, Eric Young is probably better now than he's ever been. You tell him he's not capable of having a classic match, and you can't say anything now because they had an absolute classic of a match, and it's a match that told a story in the ring, you know, using classic moves from some of the classic legends of TNA that they pulled out of their repertoire. That was great, you know. You saw Josh Alexander had the Kurt Angle style outfit from when he was in TNA. He had the ring gear, you know, giving tribute to Samoa Joe and all that. Really cool stuff, you know, and man, they really put on the line, you know, and Eric Young really sold it. He made it look like he could win, you know, even though nobody on earth gave him a chance to win. He made people believe that he could win, you know, when he started ripping the ring apart, you know, giving Josh Alexander the pile driver onto the exposed wood, you know. And that was intense, you know. And man, they really went at it, and they put on one hell